international interest in both of them is so high, and Miami being such a sort of a cultural melting pot with so many of the international, so much of the international flavor here. I think we're going to need them to be on center court because they have so many fans worldwide, and here it's going to might feel like home matches for both of them.
Stop right there. Two teenagers, one from a tiny tennis nation that had never once produced a top 100 player in the history of the sport. One from a country whose tennis greatness was buried in the memory of a man named Guga Kurten more than 20 years ago. Between them, 0 Grand Slam titles, 0 Masters 1000 titles, combined age of 39. And this week, the tournament director of one of the most prestigious events in all of professional tennis, a man who reached world number 4 himself, a man who has run one of the biggest shows in the sport for years, went on national television and said 4 words that shook the entire tennis establishment to its foundation. They need center court. Not Sabalenka, not Alcaraz, not Sinner, not Swiatek, not Djokovic. A 20-year-old girl from Quezon City and a 19-year-old boy from Ipanema, Rio de Janeiro. They need center court. And not because the tournament is being nice to them. Not because someone is doing them a favor, but because without them on the biggest stage, the tournament's own stadium becomes too small for the crowd that follows them everywhere they go. The people demanding those seats are too many. The noise they make is too loud. The electricity they generate is too real. And the Miami Open, the organization that last year made the embarrassing mistake of not giving them what they deserved, has come crawling back 12 months later with a public mea culpa and a center court guarantee.
No, it's such a global sport. So seeing that and even watching Fonseca last night against Sinner, which was, maybe the best hitting match so far of the tournament on the men's side, and seeing the Brazilian fans, I mean, that's what you kind of want. You want that new atmosphere. Same for Eala, having all the Filipino fans from coming, to support her. It's fantastic, and supporting the young, the next generation.
This is huge. Let's break down every single reason why, and why the sport of tennis will never look the same again after this week. Before we get to Miami, we need to spend 30 seconds in the past. Because what happened last year at this very tournament is the reason James Blake is on national television right now, making promises and laughing nervously about lessons learned.
Yes, hearkening back to last year when I learned my lesson of Fonseca needs to be on stadium, and he will be, yes.
Last year, the Miami Open initially planned to send Joao Fonseca to Grandstand, the tournament's second-largest show court with a 5,000-person capacity. The Brazilian supporters had come in their thousands, packing every available inch of South Florida, and the tournament had quietly looked at a 19-year-old kid ranked outside the top 100 and decided he didn't warrant the main stage. The result? Chaos. Pure, embarrassing, gate-crashing chaos. They had to scramble and switch him to stadium court, but it required a ticket upgrade, which enraged the Brazilian supporters who had already paid, already traveled, already made their plans. That was a disaster. An avoidable, foreseeable, completely self-inflicted disaster. The kind of administrative failure that happens when an organization looks at a player's ranking number instead of looking at what is actually happening on the ground around them. And Alex Eala? She came in as a wild card ranked 140th in the world, and the tournament essentially said, "You're a nobody. Here's a small court. Good luck." Then she beat Ostapenko. Then she beat Madison Keys. Then she beat Iga Swiatek, 6-time Grand Slam champion, former world number 1, 6-2, 7-5 in straight sets. And suddenly the tournament that had given her a small court was scrambling to explain why the biggest match they had seen in years was playing out in front of a crowd that had completely outgrown its container. The tournament was embarrassed. The fans were furious. And James Blake, a former world number 4, a man of professional pride, was forced to sit with that embarrassment for an entire 12 months. And now, he has spoken. He learned his lesson. That's what he said, out loud, on camera. The tournament director of the Miami Open went on national television and admitted, on the record, that he made a mistake last year. that he underestimated what Fonseca and Eala mean to their fan bases, that he got it wrong, and that this year he will not make the same mistake again. That is not a tennis story. That is a geopolitical story. That is a story about what immigration, identity, and the hunger for belonging look like when they find a champion to rally behind. Now let's talk about why this center court confirmation is so significant, and why the casual fan who doesn't follow rankings needs to understand just how unprecedented this actually is. Center court at a Masters 1000 tournament is not handed out freely. It is not gifted. It is not a courtesy. It is the single most valuable scheduling real estate in professional tennis outside of the Grand Slams. The show courts at Indian Wells, Miami, Madrid, Rome, Montreal, Cincinnati, Shanghai, these are reserved for the elite, for the top-seeded, highest-ranked, biggest-name players in the sport, for Djokovic and Nadal in their prime, for Federer, for Serena Williams, for champions. Alex Eala and Joao Fonseca, despite their youth and inexperience, are two of the biggest stars in tennis right now. Even though their rankings have not caught up to their popularity, they cannot be kept off the main courts any longer. Fonseca and Eala are both set to compete at the combined ATP WTA 1000 tournament for the second year in a row, having made their debuts in 2025. Eala has reached a career high of world number 29 this week. Meanwhile, Fonseca arrives at world number 35, having pushed world number 2 Jannik Sinner to 2 tiebreaks in the 4th round at Indian Wells just days ago. 2 players, both outside the top 30 on paper, both arriving at Miami with center court guaranteed. Because James Blake, unlike the tournament directors before him who had to learn these lessons the hard way, has decided he would rather look smart than look blind. Let's talk about Fonseca for a moment, because this story is not just about Eala, and the parallel between these two young players is one of the most extraordinary things happening in all of sport right now. João Franca Guimarães Fonseca was born on August 21, 2006, in Ipanema, Rio de Janeiro. He is 19 years old. He won the 2023 U.S. Open Junior title. He won the 2024 Next Generation ATP Finals. He won 2 ATP Tour singles titles in 2025, including an ATP 500 event at the Swiss Indoors Basel, becoming the first Brazilian to win an event at that level since the tournament designation was created in 2009. That title, the most notable achievement in Brazilian men's singles tennis since Gustavo Kuerten won in Cincinnati in 2001. Let that land. 24 years. For 24 years, Brazil had been waiting for a men's singles player who could match what Guga gave them. And then this kid from Ipanema showed up. Novak Djokovic himself said about Fonseca,
met him first time, like literally 5 minutes before I came into the room, and I congratulated him not only on the win last night that I've seen, the last set I've seen, but also everything he's been doing the last 6 to 12 months. I've been following his rise, and I just love how he plays the big points, courageous, very clean hitter, all-round player.
Djokovic, the greatest player in the history of the sport, 24 Grand Slam titles, the man who has seen literally every rival come and go since 2003, and he is publicly, voluntarily praising a 19-year-old who he has never even played. That is how good Fonseca is. That is how undeniable the talent is. Fonseca's Instagram following has soared to 1.2 million. He is ranked 35th in the world. Djokovic has 12 million Instagram followers and 24 Grand Slams. Fonseca is pulling 1 million-plus followers at 35th in the world. The economics of this sport are being rewritten in real time. Now back to Eala, because her Miami story has a dimension that goes so far beyond tennis that it makes grown adults cry watching it. On Monday, March 16th, just 2 days before the tournament began, Alex Eala made a stop that captured the entire spirit of what this Miami Open will mean. The Filipino tennis star visited South Beach and reunited with Miami Heat basketball head coach Erik Spoelstra. the most successful Filipino-American sports figure in the history of American professional sports. The two had first met back in 2023 when Eala was just 17 years old, a meeting that the Miami Heat revisited in a feature video shared on social media. And on the day of Spoelstra's 700th career NBA win, the two posed for photos together. "Just two powerhouses repping the Philippines at the highest level," read the Instagram caption. Two powerhouses, two Filipinos, one the head coach of an NBA franchise who built a dynasty, one a 20-year-old tennis player who walked into Miami a year ago ranked 140th and turned the tennis world inside out. And they are standing together on the floor of South Beach, smiling, a few days before Eala walks back into the stadium that made her famous. This time as a seeded player, as world number 29, as the greatest Filipino tennis player who has ever lived. If you are Filipino, that image means everything. If you are not Filipino, it should still make you feel something, because it is the image of a generation finding itself.
Miami last year was a beautiful time for me, and it, like you said, was the start of all of this. But since then, I've achieved a lot as well, and I've grown a lot, and I've had so many good matches, so many tough losses, so much experience since then, and that's helped me build confidence, self-esteem, and I know that I belong here.
I know that I belong here. Not I hope, not I think, not I feel like maybe I've earned a spot. I know that I belong here. From a wild card ranked 140th to a seeded player at world number 29, defending 390 ranking points, guaranteed center court, visiting Eric Spoelstra 2 days before her first match. That is not a comeback story. That is not a Cinderella story. That is a coronation story. That is what it looks like when a talent finds its moment and refuses, absolutely refuses, to give it back. Eala enters the 2026 Miami Open, defending 390 points earned from her historic 2025 semifinal run. An early exit could push her back outside the top 50. She could face a rematch against second seed Iga Swiatek as early as the third round. There it is, the pressure. The weight that sits behind every beautiful moment in this story. She needs points. She needs wins. She needs to replicate what she did last year, against better opposition, as a known quantity rather than a surprise, with every player in her draw having watched the tape and prepared a counter strategy. That is the hardest thing in all of sport. Not doing it the first time. Doing it again when everyone knows you're coming. But here is what the data tells us about Alex Eala under pressure. She beat Swiatek 6-2, 7-5 as a wild card. She beat Keys from 140th in the world. She beat Paolini in a Dubai tiebreak after fighting off 2 set points. She beat Goff at Indian Wells and took a moment on International Women's Day to thank her publicly in front of the crowd. Every single one of those moments required ice-cold composure under circumstances designed to break a player. And she delivered, every time, without flinching. Fonseca is facing a possible second-round match against world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz, a matchup that would be, as described by Brad Gilbert, one of the hottest tickets in the sport. 19-year-old Fonseca against Alcaraz, on center court, in Miami, with 1 million Brazilian supporters somewhere in those stands screaming their lungs out. And center court, the court that James Blake has guaranteed them, will be the stage for all of it. Not a 5,000-seat grandstand, not a side court with fans standing outside. The main stage, the biggest arena, the place where champions are made. Here is the thing that the tennis establishment needs to reckon with right now. Really reckon with. Not dismiss. Not qualify. Not explain away with ranking points and seedings and historical precedent. The two players getting the most attention at Miami Open 2026 are not from the United States. They are not from Europe. They are not from the traditional power centers of the sport. Crowds have been left watching from outside arenas after organizers underestimated the draw of both players. Fans from the Philippines and Brazil have packed venues wherever they have played, and scheduling has not always kept up with demand. Tournament after tournament made the same mistake. Looked at ranking numbers, assigned small courts, and then watched in horror as the demand overwhelmed the infrastructure and left thousands of fans locked out in the cold. That era is over. James Blake just drew a line in the sand. And by confirming center court, publicly on camera, ahead of the first ball being struck, he has signaled something profound to every other tournament director on the ATP and WTA calendar. The old way of scheduling is dead. You cannot look at a ranking number and ignore what is happening in the stands. You cannot squeeze a cultural phenomenon into a 5,000-seat grandstand and expect the crowd to accept it quietly. The fans will not accept it. They never accepted it. They came anyway, 6 hours early, standing in the rain, watching through fences, because their athlete was on that court, and nothing in the world was going to stop them from being there. Tennis has a new generation. It has a Filipina who beats Grand Slam champions with a left hand and a smile that can fill an entire stadium. It has a Brazilian who hits forehands that make Djokovic stop and stare. It has two 19- and 20-year-olds who have never won a Masters 1000 title between them, but who make the tournament director go on live television and say he learned his lesson last year. Center court isn't a privilege they were given. Center court is where they have always belonged. And Miami Open 2026 starts right now. If you are watching Miami Open this week for Eala, for Fonseca, or for both, smash that like button and subscribe with notifications on. Because this tournament is going to be something nobody who watches it will ever forget. And we will be here for every single moment.